issue is that migration and urban, particularly rapid urbanization, is the reality of the 21st century. It has been there in the 20th century, yes, but the pace of urbanization and rapid urbanization and migration would increase at a speed much faster than we have ever seen before. So where you were born, which country you were born, is becoming increasingly less significant. And the question is whether, as it happens everywhere else, governments and societies are responding to this well. So the distinction between a progressive country and a country that's more conservative or even racist or xenophobic, it's how they respond to this reality of migration. Now, the source of it largely would be varied. There would be people moving from countries where they were born to others because there are better opportunities in those countries, others because they are really pressing human conditions that they are trying to escape from. I suppose the South African approach, the South Africa we aspire for, we fought for, is that we would be different in how we respond to this rapid urbanization and migration. Rapid urbanization from in the same country, from the countryside to urban centers, and migration from different countries, different parts of even the continent. And I think the debate on xenophobia should be premised on the fact that this response to a reality, an increasing reality, is being handled differently. Part of our response has to do with, there's a big element that you can't, they are not the same, but there is an underlying racism an element of racism in xenophobia. If you go to Europe, for example, how different European countries respond to migrants from the different countries, and I would argue even in our country, we are responding to African migrants and a bit of migrants who are dark in color. Our response to them is not the same as migrants, including their status. More worker, lower on the social ladder, those who are in the upper echelons of society, essentially European migrants. But the richer you are, the response would not be felt. So there's a relationship between racism and xenophobia. And the dialogue and the discourse often undermines. On the one hand, that's one issue we must deal with. The second issue that I would like to raise is that I think the narrative that says that there's the relationship between cause and effect, that the conditions under which our people live, which are not ideal, are the ones which give rise to xenophobic violence, assumes that if you solve that, you would not have xenophobia. I think that requires examination. There are countries in Europe, Scandinavian countries are always mad. The level of xenophobia in countries that are more equal and better, well off, is still very high, especially the xenophobia linked to attitude to African migrants who are crossing the Red Sea, what Aubrey was talking about, and the killings that take place there. So, so I therefore want to conclude by saying that I think we need a more comprehensive, firstly, the analysis and narrative must be comprehensive. I agree with you, Aubrey. We shouldn't try to reduce it to what we think, what we have already concluded It is about the, yes, we must respond comprehensively to the social and economic issues. But the assumption that those shape the attitudes of people and their reaction to the other, I don't think it is an accurate reading. I might be wrong. Because the other, xenophobia is another layer of, there's a layer of the other, the layered, the problematic, layered. The other who is not in a South African is just one problem. But there's the other who is a South African who may not be of my religion, even in the world. And the other may be a South African who may not be of my race. And the other may be a South African who may not be of my gender. There is gender-based violence that's very subtle in the punishment of the other. And then there's tribalism and ethnicity, which is also the other. And then there is regionalism. You don't come from where I come from. So we may be South Africans, but you come from the Eastern Cape or Limpopo, and you were not born here. That is the other. So when I face troubling and challenging life circumstances, I must blame the other. The other may be my neighbor. So who may have been born here, who may be South African, who may be black, who may be living in the township. So there's a web, a complex web of issues. When human beings face circumstances, competition for resources, limited employment opportunities, they may respond to the other in complex ways, often to try and eliminate the other, violent, and I'm saying xenophobia is just one of the other. And in my view, if we deal only with xenophobia and not deal with the other elements of discriminations and prejudices, which would arise, yes, would be precipitated by people's set of circumstances, social and equal, whether it's youth or men in the townships who feel that the reason they are not employed is because more women are employed. And this government doesn't look after men, it looks after women. The other. So we need all these things, interventions in the township economy. We need a combination of measures to intervene. And if we think all we have to do is to tighten our borders, we are only dealing with the one other. Because inside our borders, there's the many others. That's my brief of. So we need a comprehensive response to this. And class as well. That other is also class. A worker who may not be a rich person. It's the other who can be forgotten. And we are now hunting for a foreigner. When we have banned all the witches, the foreigners, there will still be other witches we must still ban. If the conditions are still bad. Thank you.
Sure.